My name is Seth Cohen. I'm the Chief Impact Officer at Forbes, and I'm here today at the NASDAQ MarketSite in New York City, joined by my friend Brian Grimm, the president and founder of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Brian, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, great to be with you, Seth.
So we're here to have a conversation about the intersection of faith, of business, and the way people really are showing up in their lives and in their workplaces as people of faith. Tell me about your foundation and what work you're doing to address these kind of needs and these trends in society right now.
Yeah, well, Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, usually you don't hear those two words put together. And it really came out of data. I was at the Pew Research Center for 8 years looking at measuring restrictions on religion around the world, and I found that when you have more restrictions on religion coming from either governments or societies, that's a damper on economics. And then as I dug in more, I found that when you're in a business and there's a restriction on religion, meaning you have to hide your most important self for many people, not everyone, but many people, that's also a damper on morale and productivity.
So tell me what you mean by restrictions, because there's legal rules and requirements that obviously allow people to kind of be open about their faith and freedom of religion, but in the workplace that can be somewhat different, right?
Yeah. Well, so by law, companies have to accommodate people's deeply held beliefs as long as it doesn't cause an undue burden, and they can't discriminate on the basis of religion or belief. But as you've heard, there's a lot of unconscious things that go on.
Sure.
And one of the ideas in America that is often promulgated is the idea that there's two things we can't talk about. Politics,
one of those politics,
and the
right?
other one is religion.
Yeah.
And so there's this idea that the separation of church and state applies to everything, including business. And so in many places it's just say, we don't do religion, like Tony Blair once famously said. Right. So let's just keep that outside the door and just come to work and do your job.
But that runs counter to the way a lot of people feel. Like they feel, we're told every day we can bring our whole self to work.
Yeah.
And that might mean our identity, our gender, even our hobbies and interests. But I guess what you're saying is a lot of people have felt that they're not really able to bring their whole selves to work because they can't bring that faith-oriented side of themselves to work.
Yeah, one story when I was working with Intel, and they've opened their doors for many years to include religion as part of diversity. And the head of their Muslim group, a guy named Hadi Sharifi, is a different company now, but when they changed CEOs, it was during COVID, and he was watching it virtually, and he started to cry. And he said, he's an engineer, a tech guy, and he said, "Why am I crying?" And he said, "You know why? Because they've let us bring our whole souls to work. And I don't have to hide the fact that I'm a Muslim," and his Christian colleagues didn't have to hide the fact that they're Christian or Jews or whatever their identity. And that was something that set him free. So there wasn't a restriction there, but for so many people, it's like, keep your head down. Don't let people know that you're whatever you are.
So before we get to how some companies are doing this, because I know you've been very involved in that work as well, you mentioned earlier that there's some economic advantages to this. Maybe tell me what you mean by that, because if people can bring their whole selves to work and the company can get even greater value out of its workforce, it seems like a win-win.
Yeah, well, at the macro level where you have societies that are characterized by inclusion, then you have more peace and more sustainability for economies. That's on the macro. Then on the micro, when you have a company that allows people to bring their whole, as I said, souls to work and not just other parts of themselves, then you have more buy-in, and you also get what they bring with that. So religion often gets a bad rap, and sometimes for understandable reasons. But one thing that religion or belief systems, even atheist beliefs, have is they have sort of a code of ethics. Whether it's the Ten Commandments or it's other types of codes that people live by. And a corporate lawyer told me, look, if people were bringing those ethical beliefs with them into the workplace, that makes my job on compliance a whole lot easier.
Right. So it's actually bringing kind of the best of that perspective into the workplace, which also maybe creates more disciplined or at least more ethical
Yeah,
employees.
well, if somebody, so like I'm Catholic, if somebody knows and I come to work and
Sure.
I out myself as a Catholic, it's like, well, I better live up to what Catholics are, or I'm going to be a bad rep.
I get it. So you're actually you're becoming representative of that faith in a lot of ways as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me get into a little bit of how companies are doing this well.
Yeah.
I know you've created and now have run around the world the READY Index.
Yeah.
What is the READY Index? Explain it to me, and what is it measuring?
So it's the Religious Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Index, and it's measuring the degree to which a company has made policies and programs that allow people to not be discriminated against based on their religion, be accommodated, but even more than that, are encouraged to bring that side of themselves. And so this index is one that Fortune 100 people from Fortune 100 companies who were active in the faith field helped create. They said, if my company was doing these 11 things, there's 11 different measures
Right.
on it, then we feel like our company be on the right track in bringing faith and belief as part of diversity.
And these are some major companies. Like I remember, like Salesforce is on this list.
Yes.
Rolls-Royce is on this list. Who are some of the companies that are really the exemplars on the READY list?
Yeah, so say the ones that you've mentioned, plus American Airlines, Intel, Dell Technologies, these are very large corporations that have opened their doors wide to allowing faith to be part of diversity.
Have you seen the index prompt others? I'm assuming once, like Forbes lists,
Yeah.
once there's a list that's out, people want to be on that list. Are you seeing more and more people raise their hands asking about how they can also become inclusive to individuals of faith in the workplace?
Well, at first, I'll give an example.
Sure.
So a year ago when we released our report, our annual report, we tried to get the companies that were scoring well to get their CEO or somebody in leadership to give us a quote, say, this is great.
Sure.
We're so proud of what we're doing in this area, and we got 0. This year, we got more than a dozen CEOs, presidents, or chief people officers from companies such as Equinix, a Fortune 500 company, Dell Technologies, American Airlines. So they're coming out publicly. I used to say religion is the next big thing, but now it's the big thing.
It's the now thing. So I want to shift gears for one moment. We share an interesting fact that we both grew up in South Central Pennsylvania, in a town, York, Pennsylvania, and that for both of us had a very diverse religious experience. We grew up in communities with smaller businesses, not the types of large-scale businesses that Forbes is always reporting on, perhaps, or we just discussed, like Salesforce and Intel. What do small and medium-sized businesses do, or do they already have the opportunity to do this, to maybe be more inclusive in faith ways, like in the community we grew up?
Yeah. So I mean, in the community, I mean, we even went to the same elementary school. And in smaller towns, smaller places that don't have huge companies, the very first thing a business owner or a business leader can do is let everybody know they're welcome. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to just say that. Say, I know that we have people from different faiths, different backgrounds here. Maybe most of us here in this community belong to, this religious community, but we want to let you know everybody's welcome. I mean, that goes a long way for that. So when the leader says that, one, it brings up the topic. This isn't a taboo topic, and two, everybody's included. So I think it doesn't matter the size of a business. It can just be 2 people.
Well, let me ask a question that I think a lot of people who are watching this are going to actually ask themselves, which is, what are 3 actionable steps I can do as either a business leader or a business owner to make my work environment more open and accessible for individuals of faith?
So I think the very first one is to come out and say everybody's welcome. Regardless of your faith or belief, we welcome all backgrounds. That makes us stronger. Second is then to do something a little bit more proactive and say, okay, I know that we've got some Hindus here. We didn't used to have Hindus. Like in York, Pennsylvania, there were no Hindus when we grew up. There were no Muslims. It was mostly Christian, a few Jews, and that that was diversity.
Our community,
that was
right?
it. That was the diversity. But it's really changed. So to start saying we welcome these new groups, and we want to honor your holidays, so let's have an event. And then I think the third thing is then to start having people sharing with each other, to share, here's why my faith matters to me. That's easy to do. It also builds teamwork.
So it sounds like most of these things are common sense, treat your neighbor as yourself, and also make sure you're open and inclusive.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you spending time with me today. Again, we're here at the NASDAQ MarketSite in New York City. I've been joined by my friend Brian Grimm, the founder and president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation. Brian, thanks again.
Thanks, Seth.